Let's focus in one area, the recovery efforts in Kentucky from the deadly outbreak of tornadoes there. President Biden surveyed the damage and met with survivors in some of the most devastated neighborhoods. The president's also now promising that the federal government will cover the costs of part of the cleanup. Joining me now for more on this is Republican Congressman James Comer of Kentucky. The most devastated areas are in his congressional district. He traveled with the president yesterday. Congressman, thank you for being here. We heard the president announce that the federal government is going to cover 100% of the costs of the emergency work in Kentucky for the first 30 days. What does that mean for your district?
It means a lot. This is rural America. Rural America just doesn't have the tax base that a lot of other parts of more suburban and urban areas have. So that was the biggest concern among the county executives and mayors was we've got all this debris to remove, all these roads to open up. How are we going to pay for it? And that was one of the things that I requested. I know Governor Beshear requested of President Biden. And yesterday I was very pleased that he announced that the federal government would pick up the cost of the cleanup.
Getting power back up and getting housing for so many people, I know have been some of the most immediate and pressing needs that we've heard about this week. Are those needs changing now? What are you hearing from folks in terms of what they need right now?
Well, we've got a lot of electricity back. The water lines are coming back online. There's still several areas in West Kentucky that still don't have power or water, but the utility crews are working day and night. They're coming from all over the United States, coming in. It just does your heart good to see those men and women working so hard through the cold of the night and through the rain right now, but they're doing it. The private sector has stepped up. The Red Cross, charitable organizations have come in. Supplies are rolling in. So in the short term, I think that everything's going according to plan, but as you know, this is going to be a very long-term process to rebuild, and a lot of the homes were underinsured. Some, I have no doubt, had no insurance at all. So we've got a lot of unmet needs that we'll be focusing on in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and it's the voice and megaphone that you have is what people will be leaning on in part to keep the attention on these long-term needs. And you know, partisanship around the country is at its lowest and worst level these days. There's no secret. You know, it's unfortunately tragedies like this that remind folks there are certain things that are above and beyond politics. I mean, you're a conservative Republican. You have a Democratic governor, a Democratic president you were traveling with yesterday. Talk to me about that. How has it been working with them? It's been great thus far.
Democrat president, Democrat governor, very Republican representative, and all predominantly Republican local officials. But everyone, as they should, has put politics aside. It's very important that the local, state, and federal governments all work together. And for the first 5 days, we have, and I hope and pray that that will continue over the coming months. Oftentimes, when you have a tragedy, the federal government rolls in, and as long as CNN and Fox and the news stations are covering it, then they're there. But once they move out, a lot of times they forget about these affected areas. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that everyone remembers that. That was the underlying theme of the message that the residents in West Kentucky gave to President Biden when he would ask, what can we do? And many of them said, just don't forget about us. Don't forget about us. So we're going to do everything on our part, and we're working closely with Senator McConnell to make sure that the federal government doesn't forget about them. But for the first 5 days, the response from the state and federal government has been tremendous.
And let's make sure that partisanship does stay out of it and continues to stay out of it. If we can wish for one of many things for Kentucky. I mean, you were the only Republican member of Kentucky's very Republican delegation to travel with the president though the entire delegation was invited. Why do you think that was?
Well, the Senate was in session, I know, yesterday, and with respect to my colleagues in the House, I mean, it was my district that he was in. It wasn't even close to another district, so that's the only answer I can give. But I can tell you this: everyone in the federal delegation including a couple that don't normally sign on to very many government requests, signed on to the request to be declared a national disaster area. So thus far, the entire federal delegation, including the sole Democrat, John Yarmuth, everyone's been on board working together.
It's really great to hear. Necessary to continue that way, and we'll continue to hold the people of Kentucky, especially in your district, in our hearts, and we'll remember, and we won't forget, that's for sure. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you for covering this.
Of course, for more information about how you can help the tornado victims, go to cnn.com/